Welcome to the channel, everybody. Thank you so much for clicking on this video. In today's video, I'm going to be showing you how to take control of your camera's focus. Let's run that intro. So we've made it out now to my favourite place in England, Woburn Forest. Absolute stunning location. We've got hundreds of subjects that are not going to run away from me, and I'm going to be running you through some of my focus techniques that I use. The way I'm going to do this is show you how my focusing technique has evolved over time, and hopefully you get something from it. So let's jump straight into it. When I first started out on my photography filmmaking journey many years ago, I would head to locations like this to practice with my camera and try to learn the exposure triangle. I would always leave the camera in autofocus mode, letting the little focus wizard that lives inside every camera decide the focusing for me. Sometimes he had good days, others not so good. He must have been drinking sometimes, as my images were blurred and the thing in focus would be a random crisp packet. To make up for the hit and miss of his focusing, I would take multiple shots of the same location, refocusing in between each shot in the hope I would get at least one decent shot out of it. Slowly I began to realise that the focus wizard inside the camera just wasn't reliable enough and often would miss the subject that I wanted in focus. I needed to improve my focus technique, and this is where the journey began. Let me start by showing you a few of these techniques that I used to use in the past. The first thing I began to change was my focus area. I would change from wide to centre, turn the camera to the subject that I wanted in focus, hit focus, and then reposition the camera and take the shot. This method was a lot better than relying on the normal autofocus, but it still relied on the focus wizard built into the camera to make sure that it was focusing correctly, which I wasn't very happy with. It increased to about an 80% hit rate. You'd also have to reposition the camera, and if there was a subject really far away, sometimes you weren't sure if it was hitting that focus correctly. So then I looked for other methods. The next method I used was the flexible spot method, and I used this primarily for a number of years. It meant that I didn't have to reposition the camera after focus. I could move the spot around on the screen and focus in on the area I wanted. Again though, I was relying on the focus wizard built into the camera, hoping that it would pick up where I wanted focus to be. I had probably about an 80% hit rate on this. It's very hard though to focus on something that's in the distance, especially if there's low contrast in your scene. One of the problems with using flexible spot for me was that it's very time consuming. Moving that target around the screen just took too long. Now I know there's people out there that can do it really fast, but I'm not one of them. It used to take me forever to get it to where I want and to focus in on that particular area. The other problem with it as well is if you're doing video recording, if the subject is moving, say like a branch or leaves moving in the wind, and you focus in on that area, because you're going to be in continuous focus mode, your focusing is going to be pulsating and not very pleasing for the viewer. So that led me on to my final technique, which I use today, and is the one that I use all the time in all my videos. I'm going to show you that right now. So this is the method that I use today. It relies on using the camera's autofocus, manual focus, and the peak and assist from the camera. So let me show you how we set a few of them things up right now. So one of the settings that I need on for this technique is the peak assist or peak setting. So if you go to your camera, most modern cameras have this. On the Sony it comes under peak setting, and you just turn it on. Now different cameras have different ways of turning it on. I also like it on high and on red. What this basically does is if we change to manual focus mode, it shows us the areas in red, or whatever colour you have selected, what the camera thinks is in focus, and this is going to be the key to this technique. So we've turned on the peak assist setting, and now I'm going to run you through my whole process of how I do this. We're going to be taking a picture of this scene here. What I do, I keep the camera in autofocus mode, completely wide on the autofocus. I let the camera then focus on an area that it thinks it wants to focus in on. I then quickly switch to manual focus. We then get all the red highlights from the peaking assist showing us what's in focus. Now, as you can see, the camera's focus wizard has put pretty much everything in focus. I then go to the focus wheel on the front of the lens, and by moving the focus wheel on the front of the lens, I can home in on exactly what I want in focus or what I don't want in focus. So I'll just run that through again quickly. So what I do, I have the camera in autofocus mode, but with the peak setting on. I use the focus wizard in the camera to let it decide what's in focus. I then quickly switch over to manual focus mode, so we get the peaking red outline of what's in focus. I then use the focus ring on the lens to pull the focus backwards and forwards until what I want in focus is highlighted red. And that way you're going to get 99.9% of your shots in focus. Let's go get some more shots and run you through how we do this technique. So I've just come across my first scene that I'm going to demonstrate this technique with. We've got these ferns here in the foreground with trees in the background. Now with this technique we can either have the ferns in focus with a bit of blur on the trees in the background, or the other way around. Let me show you how we do it. So we've got the camera all set up and how I want it compositionally. It's all ready to go. So we're in autofocus mode at the minute. So if I press autofocus, camera's just it's gonna probably more than likely get the whole scene in focus. But if I now swap over to manual focus, as you can see our red highlighted area, it is everything's in focus. So all I'm going to do is use the focus ring on the lens. Can you see how the red is changing? We can either have it on the background, that would mean the ferns are blurry, or I can bring it forward so the ferns are in focus and the trees are out of focus. Let me show you the difference now in a video of this. In the top left hand corner I have what the camera is seeing with the peaking assist, and then the image is showing you what's in focus. As you've noticed here, the ferns are in focus and the trees are slightly blurry. Let's change it round now so the trees are in focus and the ferns are blurry. Notice where the red peaking is in our overlay and how that's represented in our main image. So as you saw there, we was able to either get the foreground in focus or the background in focus. It's a really easy technique, and even if them ferns were to blow in the wind, you're not going to get this focus hunting from the camera's lens. The other thing to notice here is I'm using the lens that come with this camera, and the focus ring is loose as anything, and it's still able to manage to do that. Some of you will be saying obviously you need to control your aperture to get this kind of bokeh or blurriness in your background, and I'm not going to go into the technical details of how you do all that, but if you do want to learn how to use your aperture, shutter and other things like that, make sure you subscribe to my channel because there's loads of content on it about that also. But let's move on now and see what else we can find. So we've come across another shot. We've got this fern here just behind me and then the trees. So we're going to do the same effect as before, either the fern in focus and the trees blurry, or the trees in focus and the fern blurry. Let's set up the camera again and run you through it. Okay, so we've got the shot all set up now and the camera is in autofocus mode. And if we press autofocus, the camera's focusing around here. We're going to quickly swap over to manual focus, and now you can just see the red highlights on this first fern here. But say I don't want that in focus, I can then change where the focus is to the trees in the background, like so. Or if I did want that in focus, I can just bring the red area back to the fern, and you can see there how the red is being pulled and pushed through the image to where we desire it to be. And here is that example. Now here the fern is in focus, so our peaking would be on the fern, and let's change it and have a look if it was on the trees. So you get complete flexibility of where you want the focus to be. Even though this is a video clip, it still applies to photography also. So as you saw there, it's really easy to do and really quick. Autofocus mode, let the camera decide where it wants to focus. You then switch over to manual focus and use the peak assist setting to move the colour through your image to where you want it in focus. Really simple to do. Let's see if we can go find one more shot to show you. We've just left the woods now and it's just starting to rain, but I'm going to try to show you one more demonstration, because some of you may be asking, well, what if I want the foreground element and the background element both to be sharp? So I've come out the woods and found this nice little run here, and we're going to do exactly the same technique but show you how we get it all in focus. Let me show you that now. So we've got the shot lined up on the camera, and we're in complete autofocus mode. If we just press the focus button, just so the camera sets itself to focus. Now as you can see, we've got a path running along a hedge here. Now 9 times out of 10, when you press autofocus on a camera, it will try to get everything in focus. So now if I switch to manual focus, watch what happens with the red highlights. You can see it's all the way through the shot. Just like I said, autofocus will try deliberately to get everything in focus for you, but we can always move the focus ring on the lens to pull our focus point forward closer or further from the camera. To get it back to infinity, all you got to do is be very careful on the focus ring until you get everything highlighted red, just like so. Now the focus ring on this lens is very loose, it's a kit lens one, and it's very sensitive. Some other cameras have better focus rings and you can really dial it in, but this one is, like I say, very loose, but we can still bring it forward or back how we want. And that's how you do it, very simple. So there you go, hope you've really enjoyed this video. It's just started to absolutely pour down now, so I'm taking cover under a tree. But yeah, very simple way of doing it. Just use the autofocus to get a base setting, and then you use your manual focus with the peak and assist to really dial in your focus point. Takes away the randomness of the autofocus focus wizard that's buried inside your camera. Now if you're doing portraiture and you've not got a modern camera, most modern cameras have face detect or eye detect, but if you haven't got a modern camera, use the center focus to compose your shot, focus on it, and then recompose your shot. That's the best way of doing portraiture. But I hope you thoroughly enjoyed this video, and go out there and try this method. You'll find that your photography or videos will improve immensely because you're taking control of your focus. If you've enjoyed it, give it a like, and if you want to see further videos from myself, hit that subscribe button. But for now, that's it. We'll catch up in the next video. Thanks for watching, guys.